Welcome, everyone. A proper introduction of our guest today could take the entire conversation. So I'm going to introduce the extraordinary David Foster in just 3 lines. They're long lines, but they're still 3 lines. So us hosts can start bringing David to all of you watching and listening. Everyone has a special story where God in the universe pours out grace and blessings. And for David, by age 4, his genius in one way was recognized with perfect music pitch. And then it was up to David to decide if and how to present his genius into the world. David took his musical brilliance, selling over 500 million albums and achieving record-breaking awards, including double-digit amount of Grammys. David Foster is a global superstar who has taken his time, treasure, and talent and volunteered them all to over 400 charities, effectively raising over $1 billion globally to improve the planet, fight and cure diseases, educate youth, ease suffering, improve mental health, build and improve hospitals, child centers, and schools, bring positive goodwill to the world, and give people a reason to cheer, sing, dance, live, enjoy, give, be helped, help, and hope. That was 3 lines. A lot of hands.
Other than the Grammys, it sounds like we're describing you, Andrea, not me.
So welcome, David. Thank you for joining us on Little Starlight.
It's my great pleasure, Andrea.
Now, you've been in people's lives for 5 decades, and now it could be whether music, movies, TV, composing, producing, songwriting. What have you accomplished that even surprised you?
Well, it may sound trite at this point, talking from one foundation to another, or the great work that you do since I met you so many years ago. But I'm really proud of my foundation because it started with a call from my mother, like 35 years ago, like, hey, you need to go help this girl. And, when you're 35 years old, you're like, I don't have time to help anybody. I'm just trying to help myself get a career. And I have a young child and I'm, crazy, but she said, no, you must do it. So it was her way of saying, pay it forward. And I got hooked like right away. So I would say, to answer your question, my foundation might be my legacy because we're set up in a way that it really could continue for the next 50 years, long after I'm gone. So I don't know about my music, if it'll stick around, but the foundation definitely will continue to help people for at least 50 years.
It's so amazing. I've known about that for a long time, and you give your heart and soul in that. So one of the things that you have, this perfect pitch, it's rare. Prodigies can have highly connected aspects, rarely emulated. And you have a phenomenal commitment and focus to excellence. I love that. Sometimes prodigies and pursuit of excellence aren't always applauded. So what challenges have you had that you've learned the most from?
Well, first of all, one little note on my perfect pitch. And for those of you that maybe don't understand perfect pitch, it's the ability to hear a note and not see it, but know what note it is. And it seems quite simple, but it's quite rare. And I had it since age 4 or 5. And I had it perfectly, no pun intended, until about age 55. And then I started losing it. So we realized that I've done a research on it, and it's a muscle like everything else. And I guess in a way, and it atrophies. And so I've lost my perfect pitch, but that's another story. To answer your question, what was the question again?
It was like, what challenges, because you have had that perfect pitch, which very few in the world have ever had experience. And then you also have this perfection about you where you want everyone to do their best. You know what their best is. So you have this uncanny wisdom to understand that and have people reach that. But that's hard. Some people don't want to go to their perfection. They don't want to give their best. They're comfortable where they're at. And you see something and you hear something and want to bring them forth. And that's not always applauded. So what kind of challenges did that have for you?
Well, I guess the main challenge that I learned while making records in the studio was that making records is not a democracy. It's a dictatorship. And to do well at it. And this is a sad realization because it burns bridges along the way, and you lose friends along the way, and you make, of course, friends when you're successful. But if you're not successful, then you can run the risk of losing a friend. But I realize it really is not a democracy because, and also I love the phrase, compromise breeds mediocrity. So I learned to not compromise in the studio. Like I guess the easy way to say it would be my way or the highway, but I'm more polite than that. because I'm Canadian. But honestly, I've done my best work when I'm left alone and when somebody just says, okay, you're in charge. Like Celine Dion, for instance, who I love, she would literally stand at the microphone and just say, tell me what you want me to do. And then she became a global superstar. And she would still just stand on the mic and go, tell me what you want me to do. What do you want me to try? And of course, that's a dream for an egomaniac like me, like producer, but then there's other artists that, want to look under the hood and pull the spark plugs out and that presents challenges. So to answer your question, artists that really have, that really want to see it their way, that's a challenge. When you're wrong, though, you have to go wrong big. When you're right, you go right big.
That's good advice. I know in our industry, it's a specialty and it's not for everyone. And because you have to be so detail oriented. If you're, we've had programs with 2 children or 400 children. And when they have compromised immune systems, you have to have people that understand that every detail matters because it's life threatening. You have to be at your very best every single moment. And so that's a really important thing in our industry.
I could just compare that. What you said is so accurate and so true. So if in your business of helping save children and my business of making music, like any one detail you could let go. But if you live your life like that, and that means you let 500 details go in the making of an album or in the saving of a child, you're going to lose the child. You're going to make a shitty album. So like my philosophy is to like never let one detail go ever. Like if the bass has one note that's just wrong, I'm going to fix it. And that again is not for everybody because, the Rolling Stones, I love the Rolling Stones. They don't subscribe to that, to that method. They just get to play and they're out of tune and they're a party band and everybody loves them and they're great songs. And they would hate me as a producer. I want to tune their hey, tune your guitar for God's sakes, would you? So anyway, letting any one detail go would be okay. But if you just have to get in there and go, I'm never going to let a detail go to the best of my ability and always try and be great because good is the enemy of great. I'm going to try and be great every day, which is impossible, of course, because most days you're just good. But I try to be great every day and I don't let any detail go. And of course, we're just making music. When you're talking about saving a child's life, you have to be great every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also, as God says, whatever somebody does, when God gives you little, God watches what you do with that little to see if God can give more. And so I'm the same way with that. So it's interesting because it's just really cool about you and being able to watch it over the decades. So you mentioned, a couple artists that you've worked with and produced and written for. So these are just a few names just for our audience to get familiar with this astonishing career that you've had. So you've produced or written for Celine Dion, Michael Bublé, Barbara Streisand, Jennifer Lopez, Madonna, Christina Aguilera, Seal, Andrea Bocelli, Rod Stewart, Donna Summer, Olivia Newton-John, Natalie Cole. This is just a few names. Alice Cooper, Toni Braxton, Chicago, Michael Jackson, NSYNC, Josh Groban, and Whitney Houston, which included music for The Bodyguard with Kevin Costner. And that's just to name a few. You continue to challenge yourself even further with now stepping into Broadway. Please share how you managed to live so enormously full without feeling overwhelmed, or do you ever feel overwhelmed?
I feel overwhelmed a lot, because the pressure is always on, always. The saying is that you're only as good as your last hit. You're only as good as your last 3 minutes or whatever. It's really true. So, when I have failures, which I have many of, like everybody in the world, it's very perplexing because you apply all the same principles that we've just talked about. Good is the enemy of great. Let me do my best every day. Every detail is going to get taken care of. You apply all those same rules to an album. You spend 3 months making an album or 6 months and it stiffs. It doesn't sell one album. And you go, am I useless? Am I terrible? Do I suck? What happened? I did all the things that I always do. I just did, Unforgettable with Natalie Cole, and that worked great. And now I've done this record and nothing. And it's very confusing. I guess it's just part of the ebb and flow of success and failure.
And you have a gift for patience too, because like you said, sometimes you put everything in and life is life. And so it doesn't necessarily work out. So our Little Star Light host is Adriana Solarova, and she's next. And she has a passion for helping children for longer than I've known her. And so she has some things to add to the conversation as well.
Hey, may I just say before we go to Adriana that Andrea, I really applaud what you do. We sort of reconnected recently for your audience if they didn't know, although we've sort of loosely stayed in touch. But I met you through Andre Agassi so many years ago, and you have this huge tennis career that you don't even talk about anymore, and people don't even know about it. I mean, what you accomplished in the tennis world, but the work that you've done over the last 2 decades, at least, if not more, with your foundation is astounding, and I applaud you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to end with a couple lines about you. I couldn't start with them because I knew I would tear up because of what you've done. So I thought I'd leave that at the end. So
Should we go to
thank you for
Adriana
that.
then?
Yeah, so now Adriana has
Let's
it
let her
comes in.
cover, yes. Hi, David.
Hi, Adriana.
What an honor this is to have you as
Oh,
our guest. Thank you
thank
for
you.
being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing that about Andrea. You know, she's so humble and rarely says
Exactly.
anything about herself. And I'm like, Andrea, oh my goodness, like you had this life, you've got to share this like yourself. So thank you.
You know, if I had done what she did at Wimbledon, I'd be like, hey, that'd be the first thing out of my mouth when we talk. Hey, guess what I did? Like,
I agree. I watched your beautiful documentary, David Foster, Off the Record. It was inspiring to watch your journey of navigating life and challenges with your incredible gift of music and how you have been helping others along the way. I also took a look at your Instagram and saw some of your endearing posts of you with you and your amazing wife, Catherine, and your adorable son, who is already a superstar at drumming at age 2. It's incredible. So I'll get to the questions.
thank you.
David, you suffered loss early with your dad and later when one of your sisters passed. Do you feel those heartaches and others you have experienced fueled your work even more to bring in beautiful, profound, and legendary music for generations to help heal others people's pain?
I would say to you, for anybody that's listening that's lost their parent, and that's the natural order of things, of course. Like I lost my father 50 years ago, more than 50 years ago. I still think about him all the time. He's still over my shoulder. So that means obviously he was a great father. I was only 18. And so perhaps, you know, he was a musician as well. So maybe I did a lot of it for him. But he's still with me all the time. And I'm sure everybody can relate to that. You know, you just don't forget your parents, you know, the sacrifices they made. My mother thankfully lived until she got to see a lot of what I accomplished, and I got to take her around the world and show her off and parade her. And but yeah, my father has been with me the whole journey, and he was the one that really was the first one to teach me piano. So to say that I owe my parents would be such a gross understatement, and I'm sure you and everybody else watching, most people can relate to that.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
People with a calling and purpose-driven life, like yourself, can feel an urgency to complete their missions in very specific ways, even more so than just going that one extra step. When you are faced with adversity, what do you tell yourself? What's your monologue, or how do you keep going?
Well, I have a good expression that I learned. I didn't come up with it, but the expression is, when things get tough, not the tough get going. I get all that. That's like, you know, okay, we're tough. We get that. But when things get tough, retreat and attack in another direction. So, and I can give you a specific example. At the end of the 80s, after I had had a lot of success, my career stalled. And I was young, and I was like, again, like I talked to Andrea about, I did everything the same. Why did it not work this time? And then it didn't work again, and then it didn't work again. And I'm going like, maybe I'm done. I'm, you know, not even 40, and maybe I'm done. Retreat and attack in another direction. So I went, okay, well, instead of banging your head against the wall, right, and just try to just go around the wall and try something else. And that's when I ran into my friend Natalie Cole, and we did the album Unforgettable, including the duet with her father, Nat King Cole, which we had no clue that it would be such a big hit, that it would sell millions, and that youthful radio would play a Nat King Cole, Natalie Cole duet. We had no idea. We were just doing it for the love of music. And I was so frustrated. I thought, well, I'm going to try something different. And then that propelled me into the 90s with Whitney Houston and Tony Braxton and all this other stuff that was just, the 90s were even better than my 80s. And then in the end of the 90s, I had the same problem again. I couldn't write a top 40 hit anymore. And I went, okay, retreat and attack in another direction. Josh Groban, Andrea Bocelli, Michael Bublé. Let's just go down that route. Not top 40 radio, but certainly we could still sell a lot of albums, and we did, and still do.
That's amazing.
Sure.
I see you took a lot of risks and turned it around. Incredible.
What can I ask you? What do you do when something fails that you've tried?
I take a step back, pause, and reflect instead of trying to rush the process and being impatient. Now, this wasn't always like this for me. But I've learned through tennis and through my life that I tried to rush things many times and said, why this isn't working? So like yourself, in a different way, I pause, reflect, and I let things come to me instead of trying to
Rush.
Alice Walker said, yes, rush, harass it.
Yeah, I think probably I think a lot of people subscribe to that theory.
David, you're adored globally. Seemingly, fame does not guarantee happiness or fulfillment. How do you define your happiness and find fulfillment?
Oh, that's a good question, but it's kind of early to be so deep. Jeez. Well, for a long time, I did equate my musical success to my happiness, and my musical success was my identity. Now, as I'm older, I realize that it can't be my identity. Like, I have to find a life outside of music. I haven't made a record in 7 years, happily. I'm finding great happiness in touring with my wife. I'm finding great happiness in my children, my daughters. I'm finding great happiness with a new son, and I know that's super unconventional. In fact, a couple of days ago, I took my 2-year-old son to the Beverly Hills Hotel. I know I didn't need to name the hotel, but it's a kind of a chic place, but just to have a fun lunch, the two of us. And I ran into some friends there, and they were like, whoa, man, you got your hands full. I mean, I know what they were thinking. They were thinking, wow, like, what an idiot. Like, at his age, having a 2-year-old, I mean, God, like, and I thought, I think in my mind, I won that day. They didn't win. I won because I have the 2-year-old and I have the happiness. So, it's unconventional, but there are new things that are bringing me happiness now, like my children, and like taking time off, which is something that's been very foreign to me. I used to think, by the way, that taking the weekend off was not working Saturday night. I swear to God, I won't work Saturday night. That's taking the weekend off. Of course it's not, but it was to me.
No, it's not. Saturday night. Andrea does the same thing though. I don't think she does have anything Saturday night.
Yeah.
But with that said, I think it's beautiful that you said that, because happiness and fulfillment, it's different for everybody.
And it changes throughout your life.
Yes.
And you guys are all fairly young, and you'll find out that it, obviously priorities change as you get older, and happiness does change.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. You are considered a national hero in Canada, Asia too. You helped propel many people in the US to heights never possible without you. You did all that while having to survive challenging times. When you look at yourself now, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, I certainly would tell my younger self to be a little more patient. But maybe if I was more patient, I wouldn't have had, the successful things happen to me that did. I mean, I had no patience, and I do have patience now, and it's nice. So that in a word, that's what I would say: be more patient.
Wonderful. David, do you still ride motorcycles?
I don't, but I only stopped in the last maybe 5 years, and I would get on one tomorrow. I mean, we cruised Asia when I was working over there about 5 years. Got on a Harley, and the guy that actually was traveling with me, he was a big rider. He got me this big hog, and we just went all over the country of Singapore, and it was just great, and I loved it. I would do it again, but in my foundation, which we help children that families of children that need organ transplants, motorcycle riders, it is extremely dangerous. So I might just pack it up. I don't know. But I don't know if there was one out there right now and somebody said get on, I probably would.
Well, I asked because I do too, and
Oh, you do?
I ride track and I race them.
Wait. Play tennis and ride track?
Yeah. I started off on small bikes, and now I have the V4. I don't know if you're familiar. It's a sports bike. It's a very fast bike.
Is it dirt jumping?
No, it's the track. It's you do the laps, time lapse, and you race with other people.
Wait. Is this where you lean so far that you almost?
Yes, and drag the knee. And drag the knee. I know.
Wow.
So that's why I was, but I love it, and not just the sports bikes. I love all of them. The cruising and I would love to do a trip like that. So that's why I asked. I think it's
and if
wonderful.
you could put the tennis and riding bikes, you had to give up one, which would it be?
You would definitely choose track. I've seen pictures. There's some on the website, on the Little Starlight podcast website. There's pictures of her in her knees. She's got the outfits, the whole thing. So when she heard that, she goes, I think David rides motorcycles. It was like, she was so excited. She's like,
not like that. Not like that.
No, I know.
No, a little.
I love all of them.
My mother used to tell my children little David stories. And one story that she tells, which is true, is that when I was 14, because I was making money, because I was doing gigs on the weekend, playing weddings and stuff. So when I was 14, now in Canada, you have to be 16 to have your driver's license, right? When I was 14, I had enough money. I bought a motorcycle. I bought a Kawasaki, maybe 90 cc's, maybe, I don't know, 200 maybe. And I bought it and I somehow registered it. And I kept it in the bushes near my house, and I would ride it to school without my parents' knowledge, obviously. I mean, it's terrible what I did. I could have been killed. I was 14, no license, riding the motorcycle every day to school.
That's, the same thing happened to me. My dad told me I turned pro at 14. This is before I was 2 in the world at 16. And my dad said to me, if you ever win a professional tennis tournament, I'll buy you a mini bike, because I always wanted a mini bike. And the very next tournament I played, I won the pro tournament. And he looked at me like I should have been doing this, earlier. But he did buy me. I had a Yamaha GT80. He let me ride it once and then took it away and said, no way, you can't be on this while you're playing pro tennis. So yeah. And now as I run a foundation, so there's no way I'm getting on a bike. I don't get on horses or bikes or mountains or anything. I'm just safe on the ground. But anyway, speaking of being on the ground and grounded, we have the wonderful Karen Vasquez next to share on the conversation. If you see Karen right there, that's Karen Reddy. So
Karen's a cancer survivor.
Yes.
And was she one of your kids?
Yes. So one of her questions, you'll see when she comes in, she's excited to share with you, is she's one of the kids that you've helped through your helping the foundation.
Well,
so.
Very indirectly, it's you that's driving the force, for sure. We're all your disciples.
That's too funny.
Hey, Karen.
Hi.
Karen,
Hi, David. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you for being our guest today.
Yes.
So, as you know, I am a childhood cancer survivor, and you made a big difference by helping Andreas Foundation. And besides Andreas Foundation and over the 400 charities you supported, you have your own charity, which is incredible. Even though you don't know the kids and people you are helping, you gave out of your heart to help us strangers. And it's so special. What drives you to do that?
Well, I did, as I said a little earlier, and I'm sorry, I knew it would probably come up later, but, the driving force was my mother, and you always do what your mother says. But then there's also that if you're even a half decent person, you don't even have to be a really great person. If you're just half decent, you're going to want to help. And I have a question for you because, Karen, I look at Instagram like everybody does, and I see these young children. How old were you when you got cancer?
So when I was diagnosed, I was 11.
11.
11. And it was probably 2-3 years of treatment. And I actually had a bone marrow transplant, thanks to my younger brother.
Wow.
And so I guess I wasn't going to survive if it weren't for him. So
Is it leukemia?
yeah, leukemia.
So, what goes through? Because I look at these pictures on Instagram and I think the child seems so happy. Do they really, really, really understand what's going on with them? Did you did you really, really understand that you were at death, that you could die? Did you get that?
Um, I knew, but I didn't take it seriously, to be honest. I was too young, I think, to
Yeah.
really like think about death. And my parents' support and having my brother was, all I needed back then. So yeah, I didn't really take it like to heart or like too serious to say, oh, I'm gonna die. Let me prepare. No.
Maybe that's the untold beauty of childhood cancer. If there could be
Yeah.
one with such a beast that you're so young that you think, no, it's it doesn't even sort of really cross your mind. It's just you're sick and you're going to get better, and you got to go through some crap, and
Hmm.
maybe that's just the one of the blessings of youth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
I think
interesting.
it only. Oh, sorry.
No, I want to ask this to Karen too. In our sessions, we have like so we call it story time, and every child shares, and we could have 20 kids in the group, and each one will have a different way of how they are dealing with it. Some say they heard people outside their door talking about them as a number, and that they have 0% survival rate. Others will say, I'm going to do everything I can in the next 6 months because I'm not going to be here. So everyone's at a different stage. Other kids were really struggling. And in these sessions, these story times, we'd have to have tissue boxes everywhere. We have to have those because when they express, there's probably 19 other kids that are not reacting like Karen is and how they're feeling and how they're so many kids have told me that at night they don't want to close their eyes because they feel like they're not going to open their eyes in the morning. And so many kids are like that. And Karen would share, and she's very humble about this. She would just share about things. And even at I met her, I think when you were 13 and going through things. And we did a lot of programs and kids would radiate to her. You could see the other kids coming over still to this day. They'd come over to her and they draw strength upon that. So each of the kids are different. Hers, how she's handled it, I've probably only seen, and I've been doing this for 38 years, I've probably only seen 5% of the kids be able to have that kind of ability to handle it in a different kind of way. Others struggle a little bit more and need the support of others. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Karen, but she's very unique in that aspect. And I think the one thing that's probably 100% that happens is these kids they feel like they have to become the moms and dads. I don't know, Karen, that was the question I was going to ask you. Did you feel like you had to be strong for your mom and your dad?
Yes and no. Like I said, my parents were very strong. They would never cry in front of me. So I guess because of that, I felt like, oh, it's fine. I'm gonna be fine. It's
Mhm.
nothing to worry about.
Well,
So yeah.
maybe the bigger question would be like that attitude that you had as an 11-year-old. How does that help you in your life today? Because it's a unique attitude, according to Andrea.
Um, it's a good question. Well, I still kind of have that mentality, like my mom always says, there's always a solution for everything except for death. So if I'm still alive, then there's a solution for life. And even though we go through tough times, things are gonna get better eventually. So I just stay positive.
I think that was very well said. Mom's a smart lady.
Thank you. So when you see a piano, say at a restaurant, do you want to go over and play one of your songs?
Well,
Or
I
have you
always
ever
have
done
the urge,
that?
I yes, I have actually. I always have the urge to play the piano. I wouldn't necessarily say to play one of my songs, but yeah, I mean, I'm so connected to the piano, the way Andrea is still connected to the tennis racket.
Hmm.
Adriana is connected to a bike. I'm connected to a piano. I see a piano and it's like I can't, like I don't know where my fingers stop and the keys start.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So the
That's
answer is yes.
incredible.
And sometimes we do, uh, there'll be a band at a restaurant or something, and maybe somebody in the band will recognize me, and I'll get up and play, and it's fun.
Oh, wow. That is so
I'm
cool.
not stingy with my talent. Like there's a lot of artists that I've worked with and artists that I know who are incredible, but everything has to be perfect in order for them to sing or to
Mm.
do their thing. Like, If the PA is not just right, if the piano's not right, they won't do it. They have to be very prepared. I don't care. I'll get up anywhere and do anything at any time.
Wow, that's so cool.
I spent my life in a studio making music with a room with no windows, like a submarine. And I just stayed in there and I made music. And then the artists had the great luxury of going out and performing what we created together and getting feedback from audiences. And I never got that feedback. I just stayed in the studio. The next artist would come in and I'd just make more music, and then I'd just stay in my submarine. And so in the last 10 years, touring and performing songs that I've written and produced or co-written has been a real thrill for me to see the reaction on people's face, to know that there's somebody besides, Michael Bublé or Celine Dion that was involved in the making of those songs.
Wow, that's incredible, to be honest. That your music actually can make a difference in someone. I think that's very
Well,
fulfilling for you.
I always say, we're not curing cancer, we're just making music. Not saying
It
that's
helps.
your benefit, but apparently it does help. I wrote a song called The Prayer that Andrea Bocelli and Celine Dion sing. And I've had so many people tell me that they've had that song at their darkest moment help them, and at their happiest moment. It's one of those songs that it gets played at funerals and weddings, which is so weird that you would have a piece of music that could cover so much ground. But I have a doctor friend who says, when I'm dealing with a patient who's dying, that's the piece of music I play.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that maybe, well, we're not curing, but we're at least comforting.
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing.
And that brings me to, I'm going to kind of close this up. It's kind of almost like a meet and greet now with my story. But when you said that about picking music for whatever it is, whether it's a wedding or a funeral, it made me think, and I think about this a lot. I turned pro at 14. So 14 is a very monumental age for me. And there was one girl who attended our programs, or summer programs, and her name was Lauren. She had brain cancer. She was younger, but she came into our programs, and then we always keep in touch. We have long-term care at Little Star Foundation. So I was checking in with her and see how she was doing. And so we're on the phone, and she's like, what are you doing today? And I said, oh, the kids were going out rafting and we're doing this. And I said, what are you doing? And she said, I'm picking out my music and my makeup and my clothes. 14 years old. And so this wasn't, and I think about this a lot when fundraising is really hard or life is hard or whatever happens. She wasn't doing this for a dance or a play or someone else's wedding or a school event. She was doing it for a funeral. And she was 14 years old. And that's hard enough as that is. I can't imagine how that is. But she said to me on the phone, she goes, Andrea, you have to keep doing this because it's making a difference and it's helping us kids. And she said, I don't have any money to give you, and now I don't have time to help you, but I'm going to find a way to help you, even in this and what I'm going through. I'm going to find a way. And I'm hearing this from a 14-year-old girl. And David, you and I, you've had obviously maybe 1% of what you've gone through in terms of traveling and meeting people and having opportunities. But she took her opportunity of that to make sure. And so all of a sudden, all these little donations started coming in after she passed away. And so instead of, in lieu of flower, she told people, you have to help Andrea keep doing what she's doing because it makes a difference. 14 years old. So when you think about when people are picking their music, it could be your very music. But anyway, so
What a story.
yeah. But so to close up, this is many people have asked me this about how
already. We don't have
no, well, my part's not that short.
Okay.
So,
Of course.
okay, so many people have asked, how in the world did you meet David Foster and he helped? And I said, well, sometimes God just does something and it happens. And so what happened was, so I'm going to share this story for audiences, and I don't know if you even remember this, but I was in LA and CNN had a special on cancer, and I was brought in to talk about pediatric oncology, so children's cancer. And so after, I was heading out on a plane, and it was a prostate cancer event, and they were raising money for prostate cancer. And I was volunteering my tennis talents. I was going to be playing 6 hours a day with people each day. So I get
Sorry, Mike Milton.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I get on the plane, and who am I sitting next to, aisles across, was you. And I knew this, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's David Foster. And so in my world, you have like one moment, and if that moment happens, it can completely change lives for kids. So I started asking you immediately, would you help at our fundraiser? Could you please perform? Can you please come to a fundraiser? And you said, well, who do you have? And I said, well, it's me. I'm just going to get up and talk, and that's all we have. And so you looked at me and said, you said, well, I'm busy. I'm really busy, really busy. And you didn't say no. So I kept asking. So the whole flight, I'm just talking to you, and you had this look like, she's not going to stop. Like literally, she is not going to stop.
That's
And
you.
everyone, yeah. And everyone on the plane was like, at this point, they're all leaning in, they're listening to see what you're going to do. They're ready to like get up and cheer. And so we're about to land, and I'm getting a brochure out of my racket bag to make sure you have something to go off the plane
I
with. And my
remember that.
racket, yeah, and my racket bag almost hit you in the head. There's this whole thing going on. People were like, come on, Andrea, and come on, David. And you looked at me and said, I will come. I'll come help you at your event. And I looked at you like with probably the most serious eyes I've ever had in my life. And I said, you promise? Because so many people say yes and they don't show. And you said, I will be there. And as soon as I get something clear on my schedule, I will be there. And you did. And this is why I couldn't start this at the beginning. You came, and people, I don't know if people realize this, you never get paid to go to these places. You don't ask for $1. You show and you help. You came with Faith Hill, Tim McGraw. You came with Josh Groban one year. You came with Jewel one year. You came with Luther Vandross. And you performed as if every single child's life that we were helping with cancer, that their life depended upon it. And that's something that was such a gift, and I was so grateful for that. And so I got my turn. I had my turn. Nothing's guaranteed. I was never guaranteed a turn with David Foster, whether I'm sitting on a plane with you or not. But my charity got my turn. And so when I saw that I was running a children's cancer program for Little Star, and I saw that you and Catherine were performing in Phoenix, and I was like, I have to buy a ticket and support what you're doing. And so I bought this ticket. I went and got this little gift for your son. I was so excited. And I thought, well, maybe if there's a chance I can give it to a guard to give to you or whatever, I can give you the gift. And so after the performance, and I was singing and standing on my feet and super excited, and it's over, and I'm leaving, and you see me and you go, Andrea, and you invited me backstage, and we talked, and I was able to share with Catherine all the things that you've done, which obviously she knows. I mean, you're married to her, and she's this wonderful person, but I wanted to share the depths of the difference you're making. I mean, you're effectively, like you said, you're making music, but you're not curing cancer. But the causes that you're helping, some of them are working on curing cancer. Some of them are building the schools and the hospitals. And so that's, there's no thank you. Like one time I did go to LA and ask you, can I please come to your house and play tennis with you? It's the only thing I have that I can gift to you. And so we did play tennis once, but that was something really special. And so what I wanted to do as we close this is each of us pick like a title or a song that you've either performed, that you've written, or you produced. So audiences can have that, because today isn't guaranteed for anyone. Tomorrow is not guaranteed for anyone. But what I do know is the guarantees of what you do each day, you do give back. You give your all, and you give back. I was fundraising daily back then. I'm still fundraising daily right now. And so that's, I'll always be helping kids as long as I'm here. But in the guarantees of what we can give to people, your music does affect people in a very special way.
I appreciate that. And if I could just cut you off for 1 second, you negated one fact. When you said, so I bought a ticket in the hopes I could give it to a guard, you negated and forgot the fact that we're friends. Like all you had to do was phone me. I mean, you and your work has never been that far away from my psyche. I mean, because of all the great things you do. And it sounds like a mutual admiration society, and it is. So Adriana, you and Karen know how hard this girl works, but we're friends. You didn't have to like try to get a guard to see me. Like a little groupie down on the front of the stage. You just pick up the phone. You have my phone number. I mean, but that's who you are, and that's why we love you, and that's why everybody loves you, because you you're pure. And by the way, I know that religion, or God at least, is very important in your life, and you said in Karen's life as well, yeah? And I don't know
Yes.
about Brianna, but Kat and I performed at a sunrise service in Palm Desert this past Easter, and we did Amazing Grace, and we did a song called The Goodness of God, which I love that song. Not one of my songs. But the sermon, the guy said something that really hooked me. He said, you don't get to go to heaven just because you're a good person. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not, but it really struck me. It's like, I've just been trying to be a good person, but that's not a guarantee for me.
It's so-
It's
So,
true.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. I've been,
Andrea, really? Oh, man.
It's
but
it's I think what and this is my interpretation, everybody has their own, but in this world, we're all connected. God has us. What I believe is, God does see all and know all and hear all. And it's what you want to contribute in appreciation that we do have life. Like for me, I don't do something to get something. I do something because I feel called to, and that's important. And I'm going to fulfill that. I do feel that there's an urgency on my life to go, okay, you've been given this by God, so do it. And that's why I do it daily, because I feel called to it and I have a passion to it. But I think some people feel like, gosh, I've been a good my whole life. Why did this happen to me? So it's like, that's what you do. You give what you can, even if it's a prayer, even if it's a, support them in their way. And that's what I'm so impressed with on what you've done and what Karen brought up. You've helped strangers. You didn't have something, your father didn't pass away from cancer. He didn't. You stepped in with all these strangers, and like on the plane with me, I saw how you looked at me like, oh no, she's going to ask me, oh no, and but you looked, and I told a story in another, in one of our other little conversations, where this one gentleman called me to his place, and he had me go out. It was at the Hamptons for the meeting. He had me go way out in the ocean with him on a swim, and that was our meeting. And we were way out there, and I was really taking in some water, and we're going up and down, and that's how I did my hopeful he would donate and talk about the foundation to him. And afterwards, when we got out, he just looked at me and he said, yes, you will have the donation. And he said, I wanted to see if you could do it. I wanted to see your commitment, if you had commitment to the children. He goes, I know you've given all your money, all your tennis earnings, but I want to know how you deal with every day, if this is worth it for you. He goes, this is what I do every day. So come to my world and ask me. Don't ask me to come to your world. Come to my world. This is what I do every morning. And so that's where, with you, your songs, but your effort, and no one's perfect. We never, give out that little notice, hey, we're perfect. But in seeing how you were at that even when we hadn't seen each other in so long, you're like, Andrea, and you brought me backstage and we talked. And then all of a sudden I was talking to you one time and said, okay, so when you said you would come on our Little Starlight podcast, so I'm contacting you, and you go, well, I'm doing Celebrity Fight Night, and in a few hours, and you invited me as your guest. And it was something that, generosity isn't a given anymore in this world. I mean, we know a lot of really kind people, but to continually have that, you have had that your lifetime.
well, you have to be a lifer, right? You have to be a lifer, otherwise you're useless, right? I mean, I'm an Andrea lifer.
We're David lifers.
No, it's true. I mean, otherwise, I mean, I have my best friend is I went to school with, and we're lifers, and it doesn't make us great people, but I just genuinely, you're always in my psyche, because
That's so kind. So the song that I was going to pick, the title was, when the world was on its worst and everybody was sheltered inside, you and Catherine decided you were going to try to help people, and you did little performances in your home, and you'd post them for free on social media. And you did this to help lift people's spirits, but you also did it to help really inspire the care workers who are out there, the doctors and the nurses. And so both of you performed Hero by Mariah Carey. And so anybody that's listening, if you want to go, you can go online and see this. And they're in their home. This isn't like a massive production, but it was when the world was at its worst and having the hardest time. and Catherine and David said, wait a minute, we have this talent. We're going to give it to you. We're going to share it with you. So that was mine.
I love that song too. I mean, what a great song, which I had nothing to do with. But we'll finish your thought, and then I want to tell you about
Okay. No, so that was it, the Mariah Carey song Hero that you both performed. And then we have, I know each of them, Karen has her title that she wanted to share with you. So audiences can go, oh my gosh, this is the David Foster song. So go ahead.
To back up on those performances you're talking about. We called it the Cat and Dave show, sort of tongue in cheek. And it was right when COVID was at its worst and nobody was leaving their house. And so we were just a two-man show. You know, we tried to do the lighting ourselves and to hold up our phones, and we got little stands. I mean, it was, you know, you didn't invite anybody into your house. So it was just the two of us. And we did it for 12 days straight. Every day we would pick a different genre of music: country, Broadway, pop. Maybe that was a Mariah Carey night.
That's a great story. Oh my. So Karen, what's your title?
My title was the I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston from the movie The Bodyguard. I love that movie. I really do.
I mean, okay, so that was a great time in my life where I befriended Kevin Costner, and he said, how would you like to do the songs for the movie? And it wasn't quite that simple, but it ended up being that way. And it was just a great time. And I don't think, sorry, it's my daughter. You always got to take that call. Hey, Air, I'm just in the middle of something. Can I call you back in 10 minutes? Okay, 10 minutes, okay. What was I saying? Bodyguard. Oh,
Kevin Costner.
So, yeah, I don't think that was necessarily her greatest album, but I think I caught her at her best time. I think Whitney was peaking vocally at that time. And I had the good fortune of just, you know, getting those magical vocals out of her. I Will Always Love You, which has become sort of the love song of the century. And I Have Nothing and Run to You. And I just know I caught lightning in a bottle with her voice at that time. And that's a great choice. I Will Always Love You.
Oh, someone's getting ready for drums. Okay, Adriana, what's yours?
So I'll just go quickly to mine. Mine would be Cheryl Lynn, Got to Be Real, because you got to be real in life and true to yourself.
I love that. And I will say about that song that even though I co-wrote it, my friend David Page from the group Toto, he was the main writer on that, and he did all the heavy lifting. I just sort of tagged along, but it's been sort of a signature song for me. I close my shows with it because it's so much fun. And you have to try to be real.
Yep.
And you know, you asked me about my son, who's the drummer, right? On Instagram, you can see him. And I make this comment all the time, not just because you guys are online, but I say it all the time. I really hope he'll be a tennis player, not a drummer.
Oh.
I mean, I want him to be Roger Federer. But I don't.
There's only one Roger, that's for sure. But hey, he can
by
learn
the way,
tennis from you.
Andrea, and to all three of you, Adriana and Karen, this year, the Laver Cup is in Vancouver, which is my home. And their charity that they picked this year is the David Foster Foundation. So we're going to be tennis out for 4 days. It's going to be
Congratulations, that's
We're
amazing.
gonna-
Nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is amazing. He's done such incredible things, and those matches will be great. Oh, congratulations. That's, I mean, certainly well deserved. Well, I know your family from all different situations with family are calling to you. So
Right, you know, you're so diplomatic.
Gotta take a photo, Andrea.
wait,
Right?
so hold on. So and also with all the audiences now that they're infused with you, and also with Karen, do you have any, you've said a lot of words of wisdom, but if you have one line for people to take that helps you, what would your one line words of wisdom be?
Well, I said it earlier in the podcast, but I just keep coming back to it. And I would preface it by saying last night, again, I was with Mike Milken last night, who you were on your way to do tennis for all those years ago. And his global conference last night was on keeping the American dream alive. And it was really great to hear people talk about the American dream and the fact that a lot of America has given up on that dream, but the rest of the world still holds on to the American dream. That was the thrust of what came out of last night. And, you know, it really struck home with me, like, wow, America is sort of losing their way, but the rest of the world still thinks America is the place to be. And they still want that piece of that American dream, which the four of us have lived that, we've lived the American dream, all of us that are on this thing today. But I will come back to the phrase that I used earlier, and it's really guided me. Good is the enemy of great. For people like us on here, you guys, your motorcycle, you're Karen with what you're doing, Andrea with your work, you can be good every single day without even thinking about it. But to try and be great every day is really hard, almost impossible. But that's what you have to try to aspire to, is to be great every day, not just good, because good is not good enough.
Absolutely. I totally believe in that. I'm going to put that on the back of my little business card and then put DF right next to it. So I give it to you.
It's not my line. I don't know what about it.
But thank you so much for being great as much as you always aspire to, and so appreciate this, and grateful. So thank you, David.
Adriana, Karen, thank you it was a bonus to have both of you on this. And I hope that when you run out of, if you have a week where you don't have a guest, that you'll call me again, because the hour went by fast. Thanks to the three of you.
Thank you so much.
Questions.
Thank you.
This
And
is
inspiring.
incredible, wonderful, and inspiring. Oh my goodness.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Okay,
they're
one more time.
amazing.